Hello fellow YouTubers, and welcome to this video, which is the beginning of the Best Zelda Games series, brought to you by everyone's favorite fused Pokemon, Mudlop. This week we are discussing gimmicks. This doesn't just mean the gimmick itself, but also the execution of the gimmick. You can have a really great idea, but it can be done poorly, causing the game to suck, or you can take a shitty idea and make it work. Two more things before we get started. For one, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And secondly, the way I do this might be a bit complicated, but I rank all 7 of the games in order and then give them points accordingly. So if the game takes last place, it gets 1 point. This way, being in second place isn't the world's worst thing. Let's start with the most recent entry in the franchise, Skyward Sword and its Sky gimmick. Let me just say, this is bad all around. For one, the sky isn't really that original. The Great Sea of Wind Waker is basically the same thing, except on the planet. But more importantly, it's boring. I never had fun flying around in the sky. It's just an expansive nothing with a few things worth going to, but aside from that, it's a waste. It comes across as the worst kind of filler. That's why Skyward Sword takes last place this week, so 1 point for that game. Just a wee bit above that is Wind Waker's Great Sea. Come on, guys. Like, really? This is the best I could come up with? It's just a never-ending ocean. It's way too big, and so much of it is just sailing. Like, it's not even exciting. It's just a mess. The two things that put it above Skyward Sword is the fact that technically it came out first, and is thus quote-unquote more original, and the fact you can fish up buried treasure, which, to my knowledge, there is no equal comparison to in Skyward Sword. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which gives Wind Waker its first 2 points. The next slot belongs to Twilight Princess and its dual threat of the Twilight Realm and the Wolf Link. The Twilight Realm is a cool concept, but it never actually feels important. Something's always missing. Granted, that might be by design. Either way, it's not perfect. Meanwhile, the Wolf Link is a concept that had me scratching my head for the longest time, but it's actually done pretty well and adds a bit to the game. Gives you a different way to play and puts a new spin on some puzzles. Now that is worthy of 3 points in my opinion. Naturally, this game had to score high, so I feel like the middle spot is a good slot for Ocarina of Time and its 2 versions of Link. As a kid, this was the coolest thing to me, and even now it's pretty cool having young Link play as more of a tutorial level, so to speak, than stepping up to the plate to be a big boy with adult Link. Seeing how the world has changed is pretty cool. Granted, there hasn't been much of a change, which was always a bummer, and probably hurt Ocarina of Time this week, but it's still worthy of 4 points, and that's enough to hopefully make a splash in the next few weeks. I think I'm going to switch things up for the top 3 in this series, instead of the normal way I do things, and give you a brief bit of thoughts before I continue. I find it odd that most of the older games are still on the list. I mean, at this point, the original Legend of Zelda is Link to the Past, and Majora's Mask, which I guess is kind of like the middle game in terms of length. Also, right now, it's looking like Skyward Sword is going to have a very uphill battle to stay competitive. So, that should be pretty interesting to keep up on. Anyway, before we go back, do that good YouTube stuff, y'all. Link to the Past's Dark World slides into number 3. Now, I get what you guys are thinking. Why is this so high when the Twilight Realm was so low? Few things. For one, Link to the Past came out way earlier, and just like with Wind Waker, that implies it was more original back then. But also, the Dark World completely changes everything. It adds so much to the game, while the Twilight Realm has always felt like an addition to spice things up, if that makes any sense. The Dark World is, by that logic, more important. Dare I say it, the Dark World is more relevant than the Light World in this game. There's nothing like the first time you step into the Dark World and everything is different, especially if you got turned into a bunny. And for that, Link to the Past now has 5 points. Deciding between these two was probably the hardest decision in this part. I chose to put the original Legend of Zelda here at number 2. The gimmick here being the wide open world, and while many like it, I did not. And here's why. Plain and simple, you're clueless. That's partially the limitations of the time, but it's also the conscious decision to say we want players to run around like buffoons trying to figure this out. And due to that decision, I still haven't beaten this game to this day. It's so hard to get into it when you know you have to look for help every step of the way. There isn't an overwhelming sense of excitement for me to go out and fail until something works. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, it is really cool. For one reason or another, this idea has been dropped immediately, like it wasn't even in Link to the Past. And it's rather sad, I think. Imagine how well it would work today with social media, internet guides, and the capabilities of the Wii U. And that pushed the original up to 6 points. And with that, Majora's Mask obviously takes the first place this week, and 7 points with it. The gimmick here being the 3-day cycle. And I know some people dislike the 3-day cycle, and for real, you're more than welcome to, and I completely get why you would. But it adds something that Majora's Mask no other Zelda game has, and that's a sense of urgency. Basically, every other game, it's like, you should be hurrying, but you'd rather dilly-dally and hunt down bugs or slash at cuckoos. In Majora's Mask, there's an overwhelming sense that if you don't hurry, bad things will happen. Combine this with the game's heavy use of side quests instead of the linear story, and you have a game well deserving of the top spot this week. With that, I want to suggest you guys comment with your thoughts. If you don't want to rank them all like I did, which is perfectly fine, you're more than welcome to just comment which gimmick you thought was the most effective, and if I get enough comments, which realistically would be like 10 or more, I'll run a tally on the videos alongside of my own thoughts. Anyway, the scores are now up on the screen if you hadn't noticed. It's obviously still anyone's to win, but it should be interesting to see if Majora's Mask can get a second straight victory when next week's topic is weapons. Anyway, I'm out.